Hello, my wondrous beings. Hope you're well. Popping in for a quick video today um, to give you a bit of an overview about the book that I've just read. Now, this has taken me ages, and it's the only way that I can describe it is a story without a storyline. Like it's one of these books that is really well rated, well known, and millions of people have read it across the world, and it's advertised really, really well. Um, but it's international bestseller, and it's kind of put out there as a murder mystery, but there's no murder mystery. So you ask, how do you have a murder mystery without having a murder mystery? And I was curious about that myself. And to be honest, I started getting into the book, and it was well written, and it was was a bit of a teaser in terms of the storyline, but it never developed. So anyway, the book is Butter. So you would have all seen this. You would have probably all seen the second one, which is Hooked. That's the second one. So I finished this last night, and it took me ages. And the reason it took me ages was because not because it was badly written, not because I wasn't really enjoying it, but the storyline never really developed into anything. And so it was really confusing because, I read books because I like the storyline. There's a plot, you know that something is going to happen, there's going to be a conclusion, there's going to be something, right? And it set out that, in terms of the plot, it was, there was a lady who was apparently falsely accused, and a journalist who wanted to write her story. And as it sort of went through, you'd sort of expect that you'd, get a little bit further into whether the lady committed the crimes or not. And the journalist would would discover whether it was true or not. And you'd expect plot twists and a few turns and bits and pieces, but it never really developed like that. And it was really about, the character development was great. You got a good insight into who they were, and there was, different little tidbits dropped in along the way. But it didn't really feel like it had a main storyline, or it didn't really feel like it sort of came to any sort of conclusion. And in terms of a murder mystery, there was no ending around the conclusion, or whether she did it or not. You just never really find that out. And it really just sort of ends in a bit of a, I don't know, in a bit of a way that just is sort of a little bit sort of wishy-washy, maybe, because it's almost like it's tried to combine a murder mystery with like a self-development sort of a book, and it's kind of not either. So for me, I'm not gonna lie, it really didn't hit the mark. And I've read a lot of the others. Like, I've read Murder at Mount Fuji. I've read a number of these sorts of books, and Murder at Mount Fuji, absolutely murder mystery, and it comes to a conclusion, which is great. I've read the self-development books, like the development books, like the Full Moon Coffee Shop, which is absolutely brilliant, and is a really interesting mix of self-development and astrology, and sort of tying that in. And in terms of other sort of murder mystery ones that I've read the series of the Ketsu ones, and again, like, keeps to the theme, and it keeps to the plot, and there's twists and turns, and it's a murder mystery because there's a conclusion about what happened to the victims at the end. So yeah, they're really those sorts of ones, or these two especially, keep to the script. Whereas I have to admit, Butter didn't. It didn't sort of have one script or another script. It was sort of the two sort of meshed, and there wasn't really an outcome on either. So I found that really hard to come to grips with, because I was just sort of always expecting in my head there was going to be some sort of a conclusion, and it just sort of didn't. So look, I'm not slating the book in any way, shape, or form, because look, it's it's a decent read, 450 odd pages. So yeah, so look, it was an interesting one, but probably, as I said, probably missed the mark for me. If I was going to sort of rate them alongside these two, I'd definitely be giving this 9.5 out of 10. I'd definitely be giving this, sort of an 8.5, 9 out of 10, which is really, really good. I'd probably give that, I don't know, I'd probably maybe give it a 5 if I was completely honest. But look, again, not slating the book in any way, shape, or form. And it's, the character development is good. The various different sort of descriptions and scenarios throughout the book, it was very good, but it just left me not scratching my head, but just left me with probably more unanswered questions than it answered. So anyway, that's my little review on the books. I'll do a couple more of these, because I like sort of reading books, and the thing is, I'm going to be publishing my book over the next month or two, which is really exciting. So I'm keen to sort of do a little bit more of this sort of these sort of videos. But the other thing that I sort of wanted to come on and say today is that I hope everyone's having a lovely July. We're coming towards the end of it now, and I've had a lot of, and I mentioned this in my last video, sort of a lot of sort of spirituality stuff going on, which has been really good. I've been interacting with a number of different YouTubers who have been fantastic, John Binney and Chloe, and Ems from TNT, and a lot of these guys who are very much sort of describing the human condition, and talking about recognizing things in self, and then taking spirituality and making it grounded for people, and it's been amazing, and they're great YouTube channels, so please check them out. But I had a really, really interesting experience yesterday, and again, this is going to sound probably very witchy poo, and you can dismiss it if you like, that's up to you, but this is just like my experience. I was literally I've had club size all week, so I'm like, my body is just completely worn out, so I decided to have a bath and put all my bath salts in and lit my candles and had some white sage burning, and just a really lovely zen sort of zone. And I was in there, and I was just sort of chilling out, had a nice glass of wine with me, going into my sort of meditation zone, and I had some ambient sounds in the background and all this sort of stuff, and I was just chilling out. I was just really going into myself, and really sort of grounding, and all of a sudden it's probably the most powerful thing that I've ever felt, like in that sort of a sense. All of a sudden I was just hit with a massive wave of love, and I knew as it was coming through that it was all of my ancestors and relatives in spirit were just sending me just a huge amount of love, to the point where in the middle of my bath I simultaneously started laughing and crying at the same time. Like, it was just so overwhelming, and it just came through, and I felt so happy and so sad and so everything all at once. It was just unbelievable, and I knew it was them. And I was sort of like in there just saying, thank you for loving me, and thank you for supporting me, and thank you for helping me through, and thank you for all of the, all of the love that was being sent my way. And honestly, I feel completely different today. Completely different. And again, I can't explain it. And like, I mean, I haven't even explained it to my husband because he thinks that I'm all a little bit cuckoo for bananas when it comes to this stuff. But honestly, there's no other way to describe it other than it was just so much love. Um, it just it's just made me feel completely different, and so happens to be July 26th today. So it's interesting that that sort of happened, you know, in that sort of window. So anyway, so I'm very much looking forward to what's going to happen over the next sort of couple of weeks before we hit the 8/8 portal. Again, I never thought I'd be sitting on YouTube talking about, 8/8 portals and all this stuff, but look, it's an eye opener for me. So anyway, I hope you have a really good weekend. Check out the books. I will be on doing a YouTube about my book over the next week or so, hopefully, and I will see you in the next one.